Welcome to your college-bound kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Dave. I'm a parent of a daughter in college, and we live in Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a graduate of the University of Georgia, and she is getting her master's degree at North Carolina State University.
Hi, this is Lisa. I am doing the intro for today's episode. As Mark is off traveling, I believe today he is touring Colorado College, and I know he's going to bring us a great report about all the schools that he's visited this week in Colorado. This episode will air on July 4th, and it contains my first solo interview on the podcast with a wonderful student, and I'm really excited for you all to meet her and hear her story. It's a really nice coincidence that this first interview of mine drops on my birthday. Yep, that's right. I was born on the 4th of July. All my life, people have asked me how it feels to have the same birthday as America. Until recently, I always responded positively, but now my response seems to be, it's complicated. Much of these complications have been caused by changes in policy, and the latest Supreme Court ruling overturning Roe v. Wade certainly muddies the waters for many aspects of American life. Regardless of where you stand on abortion, this ruling has profound implications for colleges and universities. Colleges are already starting to react. In an article by the Heckinger Report, How Are Colleges Preparing for a Post-Roe Era?, Olivia Sanchez describes the dilemma that many college students will face if they are in a state that prohibits abortion. And while circumstances are likely to be complicated for many abortion seekers in these states, college students face special barriers. Often they don't have cars. Their health insurance typically comes either from their parents or colleges. In addition to rigorous course schedules, students often hold jobs and have off-campus responsibilities, making it logistically difficult for them to travel to another state for an abortion procedure. In addition, most experts think that students from historically marginalized racial and ethnic groups, undocumented students, and low-income students will be disproportionately hurt by reduced abortion access, as these students are more likely than others to lack the financial resources needed to access abortions. So a lot of colleges are scrambling to figure out what is the best response to this issue. Another area that Roe v. Wade's overturning could have a substantial effect is on where students choose to attend college and if they're going to remain in that college. In an article in the Chronicle, Will the Fall of Roe Change the College-Going Landscape? Nell Gluckman provides an example of a student from Nebraska. She's a high school senior. She was planning on going to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She got a great deal, but now she is really concerned because she thinks Nebraska will most likely limit abortion, and she's not so sure she wants to stay. This author also provides another student who really wanted to go to Agnes Scott College in Atlanta, which is a wonderful, diverse liberal arts college. And the student couldn't wait to apply, but the student is from California. And when they woke up and they heard the news about Roe, they realized that Georgia was going to have to be off the list in terms of a state that she would want to attend college in because abortion is likely to be prohibited there. Now, many wealthy students have the ability to go to college in another state, and I suppose they can pick and choose. But what happens to students who can't afford to leave their home state for another school? In states that prohibit abortion, these universities will need to drastically change their policies to accommodate pregnant students and students with families. In addition, other experts predict that college faculty members will be more likely to leave abortion-restricting states and move to ones where abortion is legal. And they give a couple examples of college professors who have been on sabbaticals in one state, but are really not sure if they're going to come back to their job in Tennessee or Georgia or Texas. And it could be that there's kind of a brain drain that might happen at certain universities and colleges. So obviously it's all very new. It's only been out a week, but we're going to have to see what happens and just monitor the effects of this going forward. And I'm sure it's going to come up because it's going to affect college admissions and just higher education in general. For the shorter term future, let's talk about what's coming up on episode 237. In the news, Mark and Susan will discuss an article in Grown and Flown about 3 reasons why colleges rescind their decisions to admit a student. A question from a listener is our bonus content where we are discussing university mental health centers. And the interview is part 2 of 2 with Sue Corner, Dean of Admissions at Willamette, and she talks about myths of private school. And a second interview for this episode is going to be the College Spotlight with Dr. Steve Robinson, the president of Lansing Community College. And he's going to debunk myths about community colleges and also share some specific reasons why Lansing Community College is so special. And back to today's interview with Brynn Burton. She's a student I met during my volunteer work with Scholar Match, which is an organization that provides college counseling to low-income and first-generation students. In this interview, Brynn discusses her college application journey and has great advice for students applying now. I loved working with Brynn, and I think you're going to love hearing her story too. Listen and enjoy. Today, I am here with a wonderful student that I know you're going to want to hear a lot more about her experience applying to and being admitted to college. And her name is Brynn. And Brynn is from a small town in Wyoming and has had a journey to college. So there's been lots of twists and turns and bumps along the way, and Brynn's going to tell us all about them. So Brynn, it's so nice to see you again, and it's nice that you're here on the podcast.
It's good to see you too.
All right. So Brynn, tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, what's your family like? Just give us a little background.
So I'm born and raised in Sharon, Wyoming, and my family's all pretty close-knit. My mom actually moved down to Cheyenne, which is a different town in Wyoming. So I've been living with my grandparents this past year, which has helped me learn a lot about myself, I think, and maybe more independent. And I have a little sister who also lives down in Cheyenne. And overall, I'd say as a person, I'm pretty involved with like the community. I do love the community.
So Brynn, tell us about your community and your high school. What's it like there in Sheridan?
So there's about 17,000 people here, so not too many. Our high school there's less than 1,000 kids. And while it is becoming more urban, it still is pretty, I'd say, behind the times. And as much as I think the community can be super supportive and kind, it is more so conservative and somewhat territorial. There's actually like stay out of Wyoming, like shirts and stuff like that, which I don't really get. Yeah. So I don't think that's very cool because it's a state and people can move here and leave as they please. But that is kind of the atmosphere here. Like it is supportive and kind, like to people who have lived here, but like it can be somewhat ostracizing.
So if you were new to the community, it might be hard to kind of break into it, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And as far as the high school goes, it's kind of the same way. Like some people do move here, but mostly it's just people who are here from like kindergarten up until 12th grade. But I would say that the school does have a great staff and they do have a lot of opportunities there. It is lacking in some areas, but overall, everyone's pretty supportive. And if you need help, you can go to your teachers. And since it is such a small school, you do have the opportunity to like build those connections with your teachers and the other students in your classes.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds like that's been really helpful for you. What kinds of activities have you done at school or in the community that have kept you going these last 4 years?
So I've been pretty involved with the school, I'd say. I have participated in volleyball all 4 years and then track and field as well. And I think athletics are also really big in the town. So I think that's given me a good opportunity to like make friends and everything. Most kids do participate in some sort of sport or whatever. And other than that, I also was a member of Sources of Strength and Student Council, as well as vice president of National Honor Society. And through all those clubs, we do connect a lot with the community and do a lot of volunteering activities. So I think that has also given me more opportunities to get to know my community. So I think being involved in Sheridan is really important because it is kind of like how you make the town is what you're going to get.
Right. Well, and I think, if it's a smaller place, you have more opportunities to be involved. But as you're saying, it's also more important for everyone's involvement in order to, contribute to the town and make it a better place for everybody there. So, like, college, what did you think about it? Like when you were a kid, before your junior year, before this whole journey began, what kind of ideas did you have about it?
I was pretty clueless, I'd say. I knew I wanted to go to college and I knew I wanted to go to a good college, but I didn't really know how to make that happen or how to go to about it because both my parents, they went to Sheridan College and I didn't really they didn't really themselves know how to guide me through that journey. And so I would actually just Google search good colleges and universities. And I knew I wanted to go into biology, so that would also help. I'd put in good colleges for biology and then I'd go from there. And it didn't give me the best list and I did not end up at any of those colleges.
Right. That's funny. Now, Sheridan College, that's a community college in
Mhm.
your community?
It's yes, it's a community college. It's not very big, but a lot of kids go not a lot, a decent amount of kids go there from Sheridan High School because it's so close to home and it is affordable. It's just a two-year college.
Right. So you will be the first one in your family to get a 4-year degree then, assuming everything goes
I
according to
will,
plan.
yes. Hopefully.
Yeah. And so did your quest for college and your interest in college, because it sounds like even though you didn't really know how to look, you were looking, which I think many kids don't do. Was that different than a lot of kids in your school?
I would say so. My school is very big on encouraging the University of Wyoming and other schools in state. And so a lot of kids just kind of go there as like an outlet, like that's what's been encouraged, so that's where they think they should go. And I never really thought that was the place for me just because with everybody going there, it truly is kind of just like the whole state of Wyoming. Like the students there, it's basically just high school all over again. And they have good opportunities there, but I knew I wanted something more rigorous, academically speaking. And so I had to take it onto myself to search for things because the school really didn't provide much other than like UW conferences or Sheridan College tours
Hmm.
and other things encouraging that.
Right. So, I mean, you and I met through Scholar Match, which is a great organization that provides college counseling to first generation and low income students. And I know how I found Scholar Match as I volunteered. How did you find Scholar Match?
I was actually just scrolling through an email, like through my email. I believe it was on College Board that I something I had signed up for. And it was I clicked on it because I was like, this looks like something that I could use. And I was scrolling through it and I thought, this looks like a very helpful resource. And so I filled it out, the application, but I didn't realize how helpful it was actually going to be. And I kind of just filled it out lackadaisically, not really expecting much from it. But
Mhm.
as you
Like, I'll
can,
do this, it takes 10 minutes,
yeah,
that kind of thing.
exactly.
Right. Because you probably didn't really understand what a college consultant was,
No,
right?
I had no idea.
So, I mean, do kids in your school generally use independent college consultants? I mean, is that something that's happening all over Sheridan?
I would say I maybe know like one or two kids other than me who use
Hmm.
college consultant. And I think that might be partially because a lot of kids don't know about it because it's not really advertised at the school. And I think that if more kids knew about it, then it would be more popular. But
Hmm.
overall, I think that's just something that we need to work on as a community.
Right. Well, maybe now that you've had this success, it's something you can take back to them and say, like, fill this application out. It might really help you.
I was actually talking to somebody who was interested in college, and I was like, you should really check out this resource. So I think even just by like word of mouth, it will become more like apparent.
So, I mean, there you are, you're Googling, good schools in biology. You're coming up with some ideas. But then, like, you meet this crazy coach. Like, what did you think coaching would be like? And what kind of thoughts did you have about it before we met?
Well, I remember before our first meeting, I was like sitting outside waiting for the FaceTime call, and I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I just don't know what to expect. Like, I don't really know what I'm walking into. And I was actually slightly nervous, but I just, based off the website and the stuff I filled out, I knew it was going to be someone who would help me through the process. And I kind of thought it was going to be just more of the basic knowledge needed for the college application process. And then I was still going to have to do a lot of it on my own. Like, I definitely underestimated how much of a help it was going to be.
Well,
Yeah.
nagging.
Yeah.
It's all the same, right? It's all the
Yeah,
same.
exactly.
So like when you actually got into we worked together to build a list. How did that change your view of what you should look at in a school, how you should do research? Even tell me about what that process was like for you.
I would say overall turned it upside down because you really made me like everything that we did helped me realize the opportunities that are out there and how many schools there actually are. Because when I would look up a school, I would just see like the first ones that came up on the Google search. And I wouldn't really realize how many more schools were out there. And the ones that came up were just popular schools that everybody goes to or everybody knows about. But those aren't necessarily the best schools for everyone. They were also all the bigger size universities. So initially, I kind of thought like that's what I was going to go into.
So then you started to think about other colleges. What did you think? Like, these are places you'd never heard of before. What kinds of thoughts went through your mind?
Yeah, it was kind of overwhelming. I think one of the most helpful things that you did for me was give me the survey, which really made me like look back on what I actually wanted in a college. Because when you do look up all the Google search, it does come up with the large colleges. And so you think that's the way to go. At least that's what I thought, is like that's the way to do college, like that's the best choice. However, being from such a small town and having such a like tight-knit community and small class sizes, I realized that that's kind of what I wanted when I went to college as well, just to transfer that over because I do like the connections and relationships you're able to form with your teachers and your other classmates. And so through that survey, I realized that. And then going off of that, I was able to really look at these colleges and do some research and find out that there are so many other colleges out there that I might not have known about, but I could also attribute me not knowing about them to the lack of like college talk necessarily in Sheridan because I think that outside of Wyoming and specifically Sheridan, there are like more people do know about the schools and there is so many more connections and people are more open-minded to the schools. And so for me, that was just an adjustment that I needed to make in my mindset looking at schools.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And I think one of the things that you pointed out is sometimes it's through the search process is that you really realize what you actually want. And that can be changed from your preconceived notion. And I think you're right. Like if you lived on the East Coast, probably lots of people would be talking about all these schools. But I imagine most people in your community didn't even know that some of the schools that you applied to really existed.
Yeah.
And so that must have been interesting. So when people asked you where you're applying, you said, I'm applying here, there, and there. And how was that for you when they would have their reactions?
It was kind of odd, specifically. So I'm attending Colgate in the fall, which is up in Hamilton, New York. And when I would tell people that I got in, it was kind of like where is that? Why are you going there? Like, why would you do that kind of thing? Because just nobody really knew about it. The people who did know were probably more encouraging, but overall, it was kind of like people didn't really know where it was or like what I was getting into. And that was kind of the same with the schools I applied to. Overall, I would explain to people the list of schools that I was applying to. And they would kind of just look at me and not really have much to say because they didn't really know much about the schools. And I myself didn't know much about the schools before I looked into them. So I think that it does really just reflect how little college is talked about in our town.
Hmm. Yeah. Did you feel bad, or did it make you feel like, did it make you doubt yourself when everyone kind of had non-reactions or strange reactions?
In some ways, it did because right after I found out, I went to my one of my good friends' houses. She's actually going to Wake this year, and her family was super encouraging because they're one of the only families who has all went out to different colleges outside of Wyoming and experienced that. So when I went and talked to them about it, they were super encouraging, and that was right after I found out. So I was pretty optimistic. And my family was super excited as well because they had researched the school and they knew about it. But then I went to school and I would tell people, and nobody really had a reaction. And if they did, they were kind of hesitant as to why I would be going so far for a school that nobody even really knew about, essentially.
Apparently, they haven't heard that Colgate is like a hot school,
I
but
know.
word has not gotten all the way to Sheridan yet. I'm sure it will.
Yeah. But after I told people, then a few of them like looked into the school and then they were much more encouraging. But I think initially the lack of excitement did kind of discourage me. But as time has went on, the important people in my life have learned about Colgate and the school that it is. And so they have all been super encouraging, and that's made me feel really reassured and excited.
Well, that's great. Now, how did you do your research?
Overall, initially, when I learned about Colgate, I just did an internet search, and then I actually went out and visited it and a couple other schools in the area. And interestingly enough, Colgate was not my top choice, and I really wasn't even considering it as one of the top places that I was going to go. However, we went there and we did the informational tour. And through that, I learned a lot about the school itself and the programs that it has and the atmosphere there. And then after that is when I did a lot of my research because I, following the tour, I was just extremely interested in the school. And if you go on their websites, I think you can find a lot of information there. And other than that, like social media and their Instagram, and also if you go to Facebook, you can go on their page there and you can kind of read like previous students or current students' experiences with it.
Hmm.
And so from that, I think you can get a better sense of the school and all of its programs and the atmosphere there and really what it's about.
Yeah, and I think that, there is no substitute for visiting, and not everyone gets to do that. And it was so great that your family was able to arrange that. Because how many schools did you see on that visit?
No, I was very fortunate that we went out there. We visited 5 schools in the span of 5 days, so that was pretty jam-packed, but I don't regret it at all because it definitely changed my list, and other than if we hadn't taken the trip, I don't know if I would have ended up where I am today, so I'm extremely grateful that we were able to do that.
Right. Yeah. And like you told me something that happened on the tour at Colgate that was really meaningful to you. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Yes, so I walked in and I went to the bathroom and everything, and then I was just coming back to sit down and wait for the tour, and one of the admissions officers, his name's Gary Ross, actually came up to me and said, "Are you Brynn from Sheridan, Wyoming?" So he recognized who I was and knew I was from Wyoming. And then he talked to me a little bit about how grateful he is that I could come out there and see the school, and how he hopes that I have a great tour. And it was just kind of that personal experience that the Colgate staff took the time to realize who was coming on their tour and take time out of their day to introduce themselves to me and allow me to talk to somebody. It just made me feel very welcomed and almost at home with the school.
Yeah, I am. I always have found that when students have a high touch marketing experience like that,
Yeah.
it's gold, because you really do feel like the school cares about you. You get to know them. I hope more students have an experience like that. So now you went early decision, and I know that was probably
I
a
did.
difficult choice. So tell us about your thought process and how you decided to do that.
So you actually influenced it quite a bit, as well as my mom, because after visiting the school, I knew I really loved it. I was still slightly unsure if I wanted to ED there, but after doing more research and comparing it to the other schools that we visited, I really felt like that was the one that made a lasting impact on me. And so I was really confident that I wanted to go there. And Lisa, you actually provided a lot of great resources as far as like ED acceptance rates compared to regular acceptance rates. And based off of that, I just wanted to have the best chance of getting into the school that I could because I knew I wanted to go there. So that was basically why I went early decision, and I'm glad I did because it worked out.
Well, I think that one of the factors was, it was obviously, is money, right? Your family's not like,
Yeah.
super, super rich as most of us aren't.
Nope.
And so money is an issue. And tell me how you kind of navigated through like what your financial aid package might be there before you committed.
So that finances were definitely a big factor in my decision. And when we went to Colgate, part of their informational meeting was they have this no loan initiative. So if I went there, their goal was to have I would have to take out no loans to go there. And so they provided amazing financial aid. That was their whole initiative. So through that, knew that if I applied early decision there, then finances would be secured and I would be able to go there financially. And I wouldn't really have to worry about that. And none of the other schools that I was looking at really provided as much financial support. And so it was just such a great school that I liked. And
Yeah.
the financial aspect of it was just something I really couldn't pass up.
Yeah, no, it's nice when those two things are together, right? It's the
Exactly.
financial safety
Yes.
is the preferred school.
Yes.
Yeah, no. And you mentioned like, so your family was super excited. Your friend the family of your friend who goes to Wake Forest is super excited. And then like everyone else kind of didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah.
I think you told me a funny story though, that like after all was said and done, then Colgate started becoming a rather popular place to apply at Sheridan High School. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'd be happy to. So I had applied to Colgate early decision. So I had applied way like in November. And so I had told everybody at school basically that I had applied there because it was my top choice. And I got pretty like moderate responses. No one was super excited. And then one of my classmates actually turns out she applied there, even though when I told her, she did not seem very excited about the school. However, so she also applied there. She's not going there.
Well, so yeah, because you wanted it to be a not high school experience, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure she's going someplace lovely, so it's all going to work out.
Yes.
You also told me an interesting story about someone who moved to your school in like maybe junior year, but was really from like a different city, and he had a very different perspective on college than I think pretty much anyone else I heard you talk
Yeah.
about. So tell us
I
about
would
him
say
because I
so.
thought that was fascinating.
So I have this friend, his name is Grant, and I think part of the reason he was so into college was because he wasn't from Sheridan initially, but he wanted to go to college. That was his life's work. Everything was working up to that is kind of how it worked out. And he did get into the college he wanted to. So props to him. But he was also one of the people who was super encouraging in my whole college experience because he was also going through it. And He was one of the only people in school that I could relate to as far as the admission process. And so he was really a support system, but he was also very intense about it.
Yeah, he was a little competitive, I think, right?
Like more intense than I was, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he used an independent college consultant too, as I think I recall.
Yes, he did.
Because I remember him kind of wondering how good I could be for $0 and
Yeah,
0 cents.
he did say that. But hey,
Well,
pretty
Grant,
good.
I
I
forgive
made it
you.
into college. Yeah.
Value for dollar was excellent, right? Return on investment.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
No, I mean, it's so funny to think about what your peers say because, they don't know anything more than what you do, but sometimes people can speak with such confidence, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of silly about that. So, what was the hardest thing for you about the college process overall, would you say?
I would say the hardest part was actually making the list from the get-go, which, Lisa, you were a great help in because otherwise I would have been lost. But I think that was a really important part because once you have the list, then you can look at the individual schools and you can really find out what you want from the college experience. And I really struggled with making the list myself. And I do think that that was one of the most important parts because it's from that list that you make that you go off of entirely. And so I would say that was really difficult for me.
Well, it's hard. I mean, there's like how many thousands of colleges in this country, and
Yeah.
to narrow it down to like 10 or 12 or 15 at the outside that you're going to apply to. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I do believe that if you have a good list, everything flows from that list. And it's really, you put a lot of time into that list. I know you attended many virtual information
Yes.
sessions. You communicated with admissions officers. I mean, you did it right. And I think that helped you create a list that really worked for you. So, I mean, while I maybe gave you advice, you put in all the time. So you did all the heavy lifting on that. What advice would you have for other kids who are, maybe they're juniors or sophomores, they're getting ready to apply or thinking about it? What would you tell them to do?
I would say to just trust your gut because for me, after visiting Colgate, it kind of lingered with me, and the school did just as a whole really stick with me. And I just had this gut feeling that that was the school for me, and that was kind of what I went off of. But also, do your research. I think it's important to develop your own opinions about the school because while it may be good for somebody else, it might not be the best fit for you, which is what I learned because you always hear about these big universities and everything, and I had never really heard of Colgate. So initially, I thought I should probably go to one of these larger schools because everyone knows about it. It must be good. However, you realize that it's much more important for you to pick out a school that is going to serve your needs the best, and what you really want to get out of it is important to understand going into it. And honestly, a little plug here for Scholar Match. I think that was a big plus for me, and I would recommend that to everybody who has the opportunity to use it because it truly is so helpful.
Yeah. And if I had a verbal like highlighter, I would highlight everything you said about trying not to fall into the prestige marketing rankings, about which schools are the most popular, and instead look for the school that is the best fit for you. Because as you say, those schools might be great for somebody else, but they're not you. So,
Exactly.
I think that is the number one lesson of the college application process. And I'm so pleased to hear that you learned it. And Scholar Match, I think, has really helped a lot of kids. And this year we were under this experimental program, right? So you got like $1,000 for doing the whole thing.
It was awesome.
Which sure will come in handy. Yeah, you had to complete all these different milestones. I think they're trying to get, sometimes kids like fall off the wagon. And then I've had this happen where I worked with a student and she just disappeared. So they're trying to keep you guys going and motivated. And apparently gift cards with money on them are really good at that. So I hope they continue that program.
I would agree.
So what would you tell students not to do? Like, what do you think, like, you would advise them not to do in this process?
I think for me, the biggest trap was not falling into what other people said and what other people think necessarily. Because kind of like what I said, it is important to find the college that's best for you. And I think something that I struggled with myself was kind of worrying about telling people where I was going to college and what everyone was going to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just say don't do that, because it really doesn't matter, because you're the one going to the college and you're the one who's going on the journey.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think that peer pressure, I mean, obviously, we know that teens care much more about what their peers think than what their parents think or their teachers think. And so it's so compelling. It kind of draws you in, and it takes some self-discipline to be like, nope. And maturity, I think. No, I'm going to look at what's good for me. And if little Susie doesn't like it, that's going to have to be her problem.
Yeah.
Now, what advice do you have for parents? What should parents do and what shouldn't we do?
I would say for parents to just try and be really supportive. I know through my college application experience, it was really helpful for me just to know that my mom and dad, they were there for me if I needed them and would encourage me throughout the way. I think something not to do, which I think is common because parents do worry and they want to be protective, but try not to stress your kid out, because it is a big
And
deal.
how do we do that? I mean, I know I do it to my kids all the time. How am I doing it? Enlighten me, please.
I think just acknowledging how it is an important decision and it does take time to make, and there are a lot of factors to go into it, would be something for parents to do, because I think I felt pressured almost at points, but then we talked about it. Like I just said, I need more support. I need you guys to be encouraging rather than worrisome, because I myself was worried, and to see everyone else around me worried, then that just made it worse. And after having that conversation and telling them that I just did kind of need support throughout the whole process and encouragement, that was really the best thing I could have done, because following that, my family was super encouraging and they were supportive.
Well, that's great. And I think, it's great that you're able to tell them. I mean, that's so hard for a lot of people to just say what they need, but you did. And I mean, that might be another piece of advice for kids, right? If your parents are really
Yeah.
stressing you out, talk to them about it. Give them a little talking to. So, Brynn, tell us I mean, obviously we're not going to hold you to this, but what do you envision your future to be like, your future career, your future interests? How do you see that happening?
So I'm planning on majoring biology, and I hope to take that on a pre-med track with the goal of being a pediatrician, which I'm really excited about. It's quite far off, but if everything goes to plan, hopefully a pediatrician, because I love kids and I find medicine so interesting.
So here at Your College Bound Kid, no guest escapes without going on the hot seat. And that's where we just ask you some questions.
Oh,
You're going to be fine, though, about just things that you like to do. And normally we do this with a lot of adult guests. So they got kind of questions like what their favorite book was. But I thought I was going to try to mix it up a little bit. So my first question is, who is your favorite TikToker?
that's a good one, because there's so many. But can I say my friends? One of my
Absolutely.
friends is she's not super famous, but a little bit. And so I just like to watch my friends' TikToks the best. And the ones we make together are probably my favorite. I spend
Oh my God,
most of
you're
my time.
starring on her TikTok channel. I had no
Yes,
idea.
it's an honor.
That's fantastic. And then what shows do you like to binge watch?
I'm big into Love Island. That's always a good one. And then I recently was really into the new Bridgerton season,
Oh, well,
because I thought it was
no.
super good. It was good. And then I've been into movies lately, believe it or not. So
So what have you liked?
I just watched the Iron Man trilogy. Was my last one.
Oh my goodness.
But yes, I like Marvel movies. I do.
That's great. You know, Mark, the joke on the podcast is he never watches any movies, so we'll see if he's heard of the Iron Man trilogy.
Good.
But I'm going to guess not. So it'll be another opportunity to, tease Mark about his lack of movie watching. All right, one more question. What's your favorite junk food treat?
It's ice cream. It's got to be ice cream.
Girl, I'm with you there. What kind?
All sorts. Oh, I love all of ice cream. I've been into just making chocolate malts recently. That's kind of been my new kick. I also can't leave out scotcheroos because I just forgot my grandma was making some for graduation, and I'm very excited about it.
What's a scotcheroo?
Are you serious, Lisa?
I've never see. Now you can make fun of me. I have no idea what a scotcheroo is.
So
please,
it's basically like Rice Krispies, and then it's got like some like peanut butter that holds it all together, and you put some sugar and other stuff in it. So it's like a Rice Krispie treat, and then it's got chocolate smothered all over it.
That does sound good. I think I'm going to have to get to know that.
I think you do. I would recommend it.
Yeah, and I'm going to get another bad habit. So not only do I get to talk to you and catch up with you and, like share your story with our listeners, but I'm also going to start eating scotcheroos. I can just tell.
Yeah.
Brynn, I just want to say, I so enjoyed working with you this year. Every meeting was a delight. You always did everything that I asked and then some. It's just, you made coaching so easy. And I just want to say thank you for that. It was just a great experience. And I really do hope that you and I will keep in touch and that maybe you'll come back on the podcast in a year or two and tell us how Colgate's going and what you've learned from that.
That would be, I say we tentatively plan on that because I think that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I love doing that longitudinal stuff.
I agree. It was great working with you this year. I was nervous going into it, but I would not have had it any other way. You were amazing, and I couldn't have done it without you, really.
Well, that's really nice to hear. I mean, I have to say, Brynn, though, I think, no matter what, you will prevail in life. You have that kind of resilience, and you're such a hard worker, and you're persistent, and you're so smart. So I have really high hopes for you.
Thank you.
So just keep us abreast of all the great things happening. So thanks so much for taking your time. Enjoy graduation. And, we'll have you back on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you'll get every single episode as soon as it is released. If you're interested, there are a few ways you can really support our podcast. You can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can help us pay our staff and our expenses by donating on our website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. I'm the producer of the podcast, but we have a fantastic team of 14. Shout out to our co-host, Dr. Lisa Ruff, Dr. David Williams, Susan Tree, Vince Garcia, and Julia Esquivel, and to our substitute co-host, Sylvia Borgo. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs are from Kimberly Blacks. Lily Parikh manages our Instagram. Our image editor is Talha Khan. Joy Stucker does our website episode updates. And our webmaster is Stylianos Dimitriou. If you want to have a coaching session with Lisa or me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you have a question you want us to answer, or if you have a recommended resource or article you think we should discuss, just send it to questions@yourcollegeboundkid.com. By the way, check out our website, where you'll find lots of content that is not on any podcast app. Our website is yourcollegeboundkid.com. If you want to learn about other hot admissions topics, follow us on Twitter at YCBK Podcast. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting again with you every single Thursday.